Well, it's a humid, hot, middle of the day here in the Boston area. And I wanted to make a car vid about something vitally important that I speak about a lot, that Marvin speaks about a lot as well, and that we've been noticing even more than usual while speaking to people who are clients or prospective clients for our SP program. If you're interested in that program, of course, you can contact us. But what we've been noticing, unsurprisingly, is just the insane amount of bad advice given by quote unquote coaches in the manifesting law of assumption space. And I usually don't like to, call out individuals, but I'm probably going to do that in this video because I've just heard these names too many times giving bad advice. And one of the main things I want to get across in this video, for those of you who are relatively new to my channel, is that the vast majority, 80% plus, probably 90% plus, of the quote-unquote coaches that you see in this law of assumption space specifically, I would go so far as to say the law of attraction space in general, but definitely in the Neville law of assumption space, 90% plus of the people who call themselves coaches are not, by any reasonable standard, actually coaching you. Actual coaching involves getting help with deep issues that you are having that you want to work through, such as manifesting a better life, whether that be a better partner, better health, better finances, a better job, etc. It's deep work. Most of the people in the law of assumption space who call themselves coaches are very unlikely to help you in that way. They will call it coaching, but all they really are doing is usually supplying you a bit of motivation. Like, you will do this for 3 days and it will come to pass and your problems will be gone, or this will be manifested, right? The obvious problem with this, and there's so many flaws and problems with it as a general approach, the obvious problem with that is that the advice is not personalized and is frankly just not going to work for most people who receive it. And it bothers me to see people taken advantage of. And it also bothers me as a real coach, somebody who tries their best to do deep work with people and has done this for years and really loves to see people transform from the inside out. And I love to help facilitate people do that. It bothers me as a coach to see these people calling themselves coaches, because they give actual coaches and counselors in this law of attraction, law of assumption, manifesting space a bad reputation. So yeah, I want to just give a heartfelt, sincere knock it off to all you law of assumption coaches out there who aren't really coaching. And at the same time, I know that most of you are not going to knock it off. You're going to still provide bad advice to people that is not going to work effectively and is probably going to shame them. Let me give you an example. I've heard this a couple times about manifesting with Matt. I've really never watched many videos by that guy because he seems like a fucking moron. When it comes to talking about this stuff, and he's just taking your money. But I heard a story yesterday. I've heard similar ones before about how they were working with him, and his advice was basically just affirm this for 3 straight days. You'll get your manifestation. Don't contact me. Don't respond back to me because you're doing it wrong if you don't get your manifestation within 3 days. And this person probably paid. I don't know how much manifesting with Matt is ripping people off for right now, but I would assume it's over $100 an hour, maybe a couple $100 an hour, which is a fair price if you're actually getting coaching. By the way, I charge that. But that's not real advice, guys. That's like, I was telling this person yesterday, like if a therapist or like a counselor in another field or like a trainer said that to you, like just do this for 3 days and this is going to happen, and don't reply to me if it doesn't happen because you did it wrong. You would like consider suing the person. Or you would most of us wouldn't actually do that, but we would certainly move on to another person, another coach. That's what people do, is they go from one shitty coach to another. Because manifesting with Matt, unfortunately, is not an anomaly. From what I've seen and the horror stories that I hear far too often, that's more like a common occurrence. That's the advice. And Sammy, as great as she is, in terms of some of the robotic affirming advice she gives, because a lot of people watching this channel who watch my robotic affirming videos, they don't understand the amount of praise I'm giving Sammy a lot of the time. They just think I'm bad-mouthing her, which I'm not. The reason I talk about Sammy so much is because she actually has something interesting to say, which virtually none of these other YouTubers do. But anyway, Sammy calls herself a coach or whatever. Marv and I have talked about this a lot. And like, she doesn't actually coach. She just gives affirmations, basically. Maybe she gives a little bit of advice. I don't know what she does anymore, but I know it's not actual coaching. Providing you affirmations and just telling you to persist is not real coaching. It's different than like going to a lecture of Neville's and seeing this guy talk for an hour and him saying, if you do this way, you should start seeing movements or see results within 3 days. And it's a lecture, guys. That's a lecture. That's not Neville coaching you. That's a fucking lecture. Marvin and I were joking the other day, / not joking, that it's, first of all, just mind-blowing that Neville is seen as like a relationship guru, SP type thing, and that the people who created the SP community must have been like either the stupidest people who read Neville or just the most amoral, who were like, I can make a quick buck off of this, or maybe both. Because I was reading Neville the other day. I don't read Neville that much anymore. I was reading Neville the other day. Wonderful stuff. I love that guy. Love that guy. And I was like, how the fuck did people link up with what Neville is talking about and all the deeply mystical, esoteric advice that he is sharing and philosophy he's sharing? How did they link that up with this SP nonsense? It's insane. It's kooky. And the people who interpret Neville in this very self-centered SP way, where it's like you're going to manipulate the person or just affirm for 3 days, you're going to get whatever you want, whatever the fuck it is. Generally speaking, they're fucking dumb about this stuff. They don't understand shit. And then you have people like Tom Caron, who, I've watched many of Tom's videos, and he has some valuable stuff to share, I think. But, Marvin and I've heard stories in the past, but, someone told Marvin, there's a comment, very specific comment that kind of underscored, like, how this advice is shared, even by people who have something decent to share, like Tom sometimes does. They went to Tom for a coaching session, and Tom basically said the same thing as, Manifest with Matt said. Do this for 3 days. You're going to see movement. I guarantee it. Don't worry about it. You're going to see movement in 3 days. Boom. Guess what? Guy didn't see movement in 3 days. Guy didn't see movement in 3 months. Just because Neville, who was a master teacher and a master lecturer and a deeply mystical dude, said that if you're doing these type of exercises properly, you should see movement within 3 days. And he says this. If you go to 5 lessons, he does say that in 5 lessons. And I'll link above to the 5 lessons mini course I did a year or so ago, or 2 years ago, which is going to be super fucking helpful if you actually want to like listen to what Neville says and have it interpreted in a very practical way. Just because Neville, who was a vastly different person than any of these folks you see on YouTube, and in my opinion had vastly more practical spiritual knowledge than any of these people, or all these people combined, just because he said it doesn't mean when other people say it that it's going to work for you. You know what I mean? Neville was getting at something far, far deeper in explaining it in a much more concise and dynamic way than any of these dumbasses on YouTube. And they call it coaching. Give me a fucking break. So many horror stories, especially in the SP realm. So much terrible advice. So much, oh, don't contact them. Don't contact them. That means you're not living in the end. These people are fucking dumb, these coaches. Knock it off. Yeah, I think one reason that Marv and I are doing this, SP coaching program, obviously the main reason is to help people who want the help. But a secondary reason is we want to, shed light on all this SP coaching bullshit by contrasting it with real coaching. And if people have stories, I will name names now. I really don't give a fuck when it comes to this SP stuff. I've heard too many bad stories. And I know there's two sides to a coin, right? I get it. But most of these SP coaches are just charlatans. They're promising you stuff that they can't begin to deliver on. Gotta put up my windows here. This humidity has, with it, brought rain. Yeah, check out that Neville mini course. I'll put it in the description as well and in the comments if you haven't. That mini course I did a year or two ago. Or listen to some of Marvin's videos talking about Neville's advice, or Maggie, aka Neville Goddess, her videos talking about Neville's advice. Or, my friend Alex, I did chatted with him the other day. Him talking soberly about different success stories and different options, right? Compare that with the sensationalist. You're going to get it within 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. You can read their thoughts, thought transmission, all this bullshit, fucking stuff. I'm not saying there's nothing to it. If you know me, I think there's a lot to it. If you watch that mini course, I think you're going to realize I think there's a lot to it. But the difference is a coach, generally speaking, a real coach who wants to help you and knows how to help you, is not going to tell you what you want to hear. Like all these YouTube sensationalists manifesting with Matt, manifest in 3 days, They're not going to tell you what you want to hear. A real coach is going to tell you what you need to hear. And I recognize that most people watching law of assumption videos, and even people who follow this small channel, aren't ready for that. They're looking for stuff to confirm what they want to hear. But for those that are open and genuinely curious about these concepts and exploring what it means to really go within and to change oneself from within, it's important to be listening enough to actually hear what you need to hear. And so I hope that some of the, good people I mentioned in this channel can be avenues for you to do that. If you have any questions, I can be reached over at radicalcounselor.com.